so angry about? What would make so many young men risk their lives along the border with Israel? Israel says they're being manipulated and controlled by the militant Islamic group Hamas. But it's a bit more complicated than that. It's a strip of land about 40 kilometers long and 10 kilometers wide on the Mediterranean coast between Egypt and Israel. The question of who controls it is complicated. It's run by the Palestinians, but Israel controls almost all the borders. Egypt controlled it after the 1948 war and the creation of Israel. Then, in another war in 1967, Israel occupied Gaza and the West Bank. Pretty soon, Israeli settlers moved in and set up their own communities. They stayed there until 2005, when Israel finally decided to pull them out of Gaza along with its soldiers. Well, Hamas have been in charge for the past decade, following fighting with their more moderate rivals Fatah in 2007. The two sides have tried more than once to bury the hatchet, but the deals have always fallen apart, and so Hamas is still in control. With a population of about 1.8 million people, it's one of the most densely populated places on Earth. Most of those who live here are the descendants of people who fled or were driven from their homes in 1948. Many of them still live in refugee camps, and after 70 years, they still yearn for their homes across the fence in Israel. They describe the Gaza Strip as the world's largest open-air prison. It's been under Israeli land, air and sea blockade ever since Hamas took over. Egypt also strictly controls its border. There are shortages of water and power, dangerously high unemployment, and very little freedom to travel outside. Every few years, it seems, there's an explosion of violence. 3 major Israeli military operations since 2008, triggered in part by rockets fired into Israeli towns and cities by Hamas. Each time, Israeli forces have invaded, using overwhelming firepower and killing large numbers of Palestinians. Israel regards any attempt to storm the border or break holes in the fence as a red line. The government has repeatedly warned that anyone attempting to break through into Israel and commit acts of violence risks being shot dead. But Israeli human rights groups and the UN have said that the threat of violence does not in itself excuse